Hey traders, this is Christian from Tribeca Trade Group, and this is your end of day market video for Monday, February 28th. This is actually the last trading day of the month, so through another month of trading. 2022, of course, shaping up to be a lot different than the last couple of years, and a lot of maneuvering, a lot of adjustments, I think, to be made this year to be able to do well so far in this year. We're going to talk a little bit about this in this video today. Risk disclaimer in front of you: everything that we're going through is for information purposes only, not giving out any advice or recommendations. Everything that we're going through is for information, education purposes only. So, theme of the day. So let's talk a little bit about today's price action, and then we'll kind of do a quick overview for the month and go from there. But so the performance, SPY did finish down for the day, but a very very nice move off of the overnight lows, where S&P futures were down well over 2%, almost at one point. I think around 2.5%. I don't think we got to down 3% last night, but regardless, we've been seeing this volatility, and I think traders are possibly getting a little bit more used to that, right? The VIX closed back at 30 again today, right? Just indicating that we've got a lot of volume, not a lot of volume, maybe a lot of volume too, but a lot of volatility right now. So, I think that if you're not making adjustments, you're probably having a more difficult time. If you're staying rigid, being stubborn in this market, you're having a more difficult time. But if you're making adjustments and realizing that this market is much different than what it was the last few years, I think you're doing a little bit better. Even more so if you're really just being objective and picking up on what some of the trends are right now in this market, versus looking at names and just areas that were good a couple of years ago. If you're taking a look and really honing in on where that relative strength is, then you may have actually had a decent month for February. So I mentioned the S&P was down. Finished down for the day, but finished even from the open, where price did rally into today's open, still finished up over 1% from the cash open to the close. Interesting, IWM was up the most. That was up, was green on the day, as well as the Qs did finish in the green in the day, but up 1.4%. I thought that was pretty interesting. This is a chart of IWM relative to SPY, right? So you've got IWM in the numerator, SPY in the denominator. Look at the outperformance over the last month. So why do I think that this is so interesting that small caps outperformed? Well, because I've seen so many people talk about the breakdown in IWM, and I just thought it was kind of notable. So can I click on this? There we go. There. But yeah, you could see over this last month, it's actually not where I wanted to click on it, but you've got nice performance. So I think IWM actually finished up 1%, and SPY finished down about 3% for the month. So yeah, kind of interesting. I mean, do I think IWM just continues to outperform? I think the chart's very difficult. So but for now, you've got some relative strength going on. So that'll be something interesting to monitor going into the next month. Interesting as well, bonds were very strong today, kind of indicating risk off. They rallied through basically the whole session, kind of picked up in the afternoon. I'm not sure if that is a warning signal yet, but I think for now, being nimble in this market and taking some risk off, making sure that you've got a cash balance for days like this, so that you can be more in offensive mode versus defensive mode. That's really what this month has been all about too. If you're positioned well, if you've been positioned for it well, it's been an easier market to tackle. Again, I wouldn't classify it as an easy market, but easier if you've been a little bit lighter, right? I talked a little bit about that. I asked traders over the weekend. I said, what adjustments have you been making? And I wasn't specific in my question, but really the question that I wanted to know is, what have you been doing? What have traders been doing to be successful over the last month? What's some of the positive changes? And I think, for me, I can speak to them. It's basically just doing that and saying, hey, well, I am traditionally more of a swing trader, but the market hasn't been conducive all the time to doing that. The volatility has just been too high of a level to be doing just swing trading and to be, fully invested. So, having that flexibility where sometimes I'm 50% cash in my trading account has really helped me. Also, just realizing that it's a day trader's market, or it's been for not the whole month, but for a good portion of the month, it's day trading has really worked well, and being able to be flexible and put on some shorts here and there too have worked pretty well too at different points during the month. So let me get into the S&P chart, and I'll kind of I'm going to go back and forth a little bit, talking about the overall month and talking about today's price action. But I thought this was kind of, we had a nice 2-day rally. We kind of rallied right up to, I don't have the value areas. Actually, I could turn that on just so that you know what I'm looking at. But if we look at all the value areas, it's kind of been pretty telling with this month, in terms of rallying up to resistance. The other thing was today, right? And I often get the question, how do you use the value areas to trade? Well, first of all, the value areas are using volume at price, right? And of course, time is a big component of that. When we're on the 1-hour chart, we're looking at a value area for the whole week, right? And what kind of, not only for individual names, right, that I use the value areas for breakouts and for support resistance levels, but I also use them just to kind of provide some guidance around what the indices are doing, right? So if I know that we're hitting resistance in the overall S&P, right, I'm going to be cognizant that I should be taking some profits and not looking for new trades around there. So we hit that perfectly, right? And I even tweeted this out. You could go back and you could look at my tweets, but I said, I thought I was pretty descriptive, saying, hey, we're at the top of value. We made a really nice recovery for the day. Be mindful that we might do some digestion. And literally, minutes after that, in the next hour, you could see this big red bar after that. So it all depends. Sometimes we're able to get through the value area, but this market has been a little bit different. We don't have a ton of momentum in this market, right? We're getting bursts of momentum and then things kind of quiet down. So this level 43.78, we're going to come back to that tomorrow. We could get over that, but again, what usually happens, right? You could see this a couple of weeks ago, just as an example. We rallied up to the top of value, kind of hung around here, couldn't really go too far into it, and then we really backed off from there. So that's why it's important, right, to kind of realize, like, this is not an area to be adding risk, like after a big move, throughout the day, and you've got that resistance. So again, these areas are pre-built in our market webs indicator. Volume at price is really a big indicator for me, because it's so reliable on multiple time frames, right? So that is the 1 hour. And I think it really helps too, because the daily chart, right, we know that we kind of have a little bit of a mess with the indices, right? They're underneath the 200-day moving average. They haven't been acting very healthy. And it helps to kind of look at that shorter time frame, just to know, in a really tough looking daily chart, being that it's still below the 200-day moving average, the 1 hour chart can really give you some clues in terms of where that short-term resistance lies. All right, so that's S&P. I'll look at the Qs, because I get more questions about the Qs than NASDAQ futures. But also keep in mind, right, it is end of month, as I've already mentioned. We've got a new value area for the month of, so let me go back to the S&P just for a second. We're going to have a new value area, right? Because I mentioned time is a big component of what we're doing. So as we get to the new month, March, come tomorrow, this will be lit up. So it looks like we're going to start the month inside value. I if you're bullish, I prefer that setup rather than trying to battle to get into the value area for the month, right? Because that is resistance. So being that we're in, looks like, provided any major move in the overnight market tonight, like a big one, we should be opening up inside value for the new month, and we'll have support level 43.30. Now, if we break the support, and also you just have to, I stress this a lot, but the 200-day moving average is below the 200-day moving average is really a tough place to be doing a lot of swing trading, right? The trend is still down, right? So we're still bouncing in a downtrend, right, until we get back over that 200-day moving average. And it's good to think about that, right? It's good to make sure that you understand, right, that right now we're in a downtrend, right? Why, again, why is that so important to me? Because as I often state in these videos, I am a trend trader, and I do believe that the prevailing trend is important. So until we can get back above the 200-day moving average, I still have in the back of my mind that these are bounces in a downtrend now that we're below the 200-day moving average. So that's what you kind of have to be careful of, right? So the Qs, which right around 340 is going to be your support. IWM, which we mentioned, again, you look at the IWM chart and you may think a head scratcher that this actually outperformed for the month, but it depends, like, obviously where we started the month, which was right in here, right? So for the month, again, the overall trend does not look great for the small caps, but for the month, they squeaked out a gain for the month. All right, so that's the indices. And again, IWM is still kind of looks like it's setting up a little bit better, right? That has already made it through the resistance for the week, right? It's above value. Now, it doesn't mean that we can't come back and retest 200 spot 27 or 200 spot 18, but for now it's better. All right, so sectors, right? Believe it or not, the best performing sector for the day was solar, right? And the clean energy stocks were very strong, but solar was up 7.6%, something that we haven't seen in a while. So we'll keep an eye on that. I have my eye on a few names within this group. The ENPH, which I thought had great earnings. It really kind of took its, is going back to that tricky word, right? Here was the earnings move, gave the whole thing back, and is now acting a little bit better. SEDG is another one that I think looks interesting here, right? This had earnings, again, kind of gave it back because of the overall market volatility. Also on the weekly chart, I would be watching 315.36, see if price can close above there. Still kind of a difficult looking chart, but like I said, I'm willing to give the benefit of the doubt to some of these names, just to see if they can kind of start to move. And I don't have a position on any of them, so I'm doing a lot of watching. All right, energy stocks once again. All right, so XOP was up there. You could see on the weekly chart, right? It is now out of this move here. So energy looks very strong. I talked about Exxon in the weekend video. By the way, I hope that I sent one of my weekend videos out to members. I sent that out publicly. Please let me know what you think, but I think based on the performance, you're probably pretty happy with some of the names that I highlighted in the weekend video. Right. And I think if you look at and here's the sheet that I provided, but you could see, just for one day, you got a lot of nice moves. RS was definitely a name that I highlighted. This is Reliance Steel and Aluminum. You got a really nice breakout there, and a number of other names that highlighted pretty well. And again, the relative strength areas did very well, right? And again, that's what we're all about, is relative strength, right? So Exxon, I did take a position in this. It has been the question in the trading room. Yeah, it's been a slower mover. It's still kind of in consolidation station. This one, it's not acting as well as some of the other names. APA had a real nice move today, up 5.8%. So it's funny in energy. Sometimes you go into an energy stock, right, and it hasn't done very much. Wait for Thinkorswim here for just a second. You still have to go through and you have to look for the names that are going to perform Well, one name that I have my eye on, I actually started a position in this, right? So this is the case of an underperformer in energy, right? This Calon Petroleum has done nothing but go sideways. Usually, I don't like to go after the underperformers in a group. However, the chart is really the moving averages are coiled. Definition of coiled is when you have three moving averages wrapped around one another. So you've got that going on, and you also have, this name leaning to the upside. Now it's done this a few times the last 2 months, and it hasn't done anything. So that's why for me it was just a starter position to put on, and we'll see if this thing could actually start to get going. But I did not put on a big size position because I want to make sure that this thing is going to go in the right direction first. All right, so going back to our sheet. So yes, energy very strong. Once again, XLE up 2.5% for the day. XOP up 5.3% for the day. Cyber stocks were very strong too. That was a focus of our weekend video, as well as some names that we talked about on Friday. Palo Alto was a name that we added to the TTG trend portfolio last week, completely breaking out, right? We talked a little bit about too, how there's a difference between some of these names in terms of the valuation, right? Valuation has been a big thing this year, right? Some of the names that have a huge, very high price to sales ratio haven't been doing as well. And, Checkpoint, I don't know for sure because I don't know this company that well, but I don't think that they're doing anything much better than some of the other names are. They're just valued a lot better. So Checkpoint was a nice one. NLOK, this is a name that I've talked about now for a while. Had this big move on earnings, again, filled the whole move back, and moving back up a bit. FTNT is another name that we talked about on Friday. This actually closed right at the top of value on Friday, so it was a little bit tricky, but again, up 6%. Name had pretty decent earnings too. So nice breaking out of this. Hopefully we're going to see a lot of this, where this looks like a head and shoulders pattern. Left shoulder, head, right shoulder, but look at it break the pattern. Right. And doing that pretty well. So that's nice. I like to play this group a lot. This is a group from the last couple of years, but cyber attacks are something that unfortunately we're going to continue to experience. The agriculture names continue to be very strong. This is Intrepid Potash. This was not a name that I had on my list this week. It was brought up in the trading room last week. Very nice. NTR continues to act very well, up to 86. Again, these names acting like, if you want, those growth moves. And I know that there's a lot of people that are still waiting for growth to kind of wake up. But I'll tell you, these moves are huge in this space. This stock was at $70, $74, $75 last week. It's up $10, right? So, you can catch momentum in these names. Bungie had an inside day. Also a name that I got long last week was Archer Daniels, which didn't perform very well today. I kind of added to it. I took a couple targets on Friday, so I was okay with adding a position back. The steel names I mentioned: Reliance Steel and Aluminum. I love names that are not on everybody's radar. Right, this is a name that I've traded in years past, but look at this pattern that you've got going on in Reliance Steel and Aluminum. Right, this year's been all about things like Alcoa. Right, but I think Alcoa is probably just due for some consolidation because it's been so damn strong over the last few months. But the Reliance Steel and Aluminum is a new fresh breakout. So, and moving with a lot of momentum. Look at the volume today in this. All right, so very strong. This was a name that we went over in detail on Friday, as well as in the end of day video. Nucor, I put this position on. I decided to take it off because I'm long a couple of these names. I'm long Valet too, which had a nice day, up 3.7%. And so I wanted to talk about a concept, right? So we know that the metals and mining space, right, has been extremely strong. XME took out, did it get to the VPOC? Almost got to the VPOC up here. But just keep in mind with all the geopolitical things, right? And the reason why I'm going over this is because you always want to be thinking about your risk, right? So what's been working well is the steel names, some of the material names, the energy names. If, and we kind of hope, right, that this geopolitical situation between Russia and Ukraine gets diffused. If that happens, what's going to happen to all these names, right? All the agriculture names, a lot of the energy names, the nat gas names, they're probably going to take a pretty decent breather if that happens, right? So you got to be careful that, in my opinion, to be careful about if this geopolitical situation gets diffused, and I hope it does, what's going to happen to a lot of these names, right? Probably they're going to kind of come off pretty decently. So you got to be careful of what you're holding, right? And how many of the same names in the same group that you're holding. Now, how you can kind of get past that a little bit, right? And I'm along CCJ, which I took a nice healthy target pre-market. That was also up 7% today. So this is working, so there's been some really nice trends, even though the overall indices are still below the 200-day moving average. We're able to find, these trends and where the strength is in this market. Just have to be, in my opinion, taking profits into these moves, because if this situation, if they do negotiate and the conflicts comes to an end, a lot of these things are probably going to revert back pretty quickly. So keep that in the back of your mind. I don't know that for sure, but it's just something that I'm thinking about, and why, I took off a new core today, right? And why I try to take as many targets as I can while leaving runners on, right? So that's just something to think about, right? And what will happen too, if that does happen, is there'll probably be a pretty decent rotation, or profit taking in some things and a move to other places. All right, guys. So that's it. Just to kind of sum up the month too, I'll put out my end of month P&L summary, which I've been doing every month. This was a much better month for me, right? If you remember, I had a disaster of a month in January. I just let my discipline get a little bit too relaxed. I was looking too much at my P&L too. And so I really made some, I talked about in the beginning of this video, made some adjustments. Those things really helped me. And I'll tell you, this has happened to me before over the years. Maybe not as bad as the January that I had this time around, but when I've had these bad months, it's usually because of the same things. It's not because of the market, right? You can't blame the market, right? You're in control, right? And the way that you trade the market, right? We can't control the market, but you can control your risk and what you're doing, and whether or not you're in the market, or you're heavy into cash, right? And for January, I should have been a lot more in cash than I was. I was pressing at the wrong places, and I had a couple trading errors that I let get, that I kind of compounded a little bit in January. This month, I followed my rules. I was just a much smarter trader in terms of finding trends, but still not getting over the tips of my skis, really realizing what kind of market that we're dealing with, which is a higher volatility market, right? The VIX is still 30, right? That is indicating that the market is moving again very fast, right? And it's volatile, which I said already. So those adjustments really helped, and I look forward to the next month. This was something good for me to build off of. I didn't make all my profits back from, my losses back from January, but hey, we've got plenty of time through this year, and, I'll chip away at it, get it done. And again, it's more so about the process too. If I'm following the process, and I've said this many times, if I'm following my system, my process, right, and I'm doing what I should be doing, right, doing my homework, right, and making sure I'm finding the trends, right, then things are going to align pretty well for me, right, and that's how it was for February. So I'll put out those numbers tomorrow, guys. Have a great night. Nice way to kind of end the month for today, and I'll see you guys back tomorrow. Have a great night, everybody.